Just coming on here to conduct a live stream based upon general chat, not speaking about anything in particular for those of you who may be interested. Besides, it's been a while since I've been on TikTok. Well, not TikTok, but actually YouTube. TikTok and YouTube to be specific, which are two of the apps that I frequent or have frequented on a previous basis. But speaking about what I'm doing right now, I was going through the Constitution for the United States of America because of what has been transpiring here in the country as of recently with regards to the initiation of the attack of members of Iran and how various members of Congress believe that Donald Trump as president was out of line through declaring war without their approval or authorization. Under the Constitution, though, a president is or has an obligation to contact members of Congress if he or she had any intention of going to war. But because the president is, in fact, the commander-in-chief of the United States Armed Forces, the president, under Article 2 governing the Constitution, has taken that specific duty or responsibility as meaning that he or they have the authority under the Constitution to actually send troops to a specific region of the world to carry out military strikes upon alleged enemies of the United States, which consists of people like you and I, of course. So that's what I'm reading right now. And because of what has happened many times in the past when it comes to members of Congress, they fail to realize that even though Trump did initiate military strikes against members of foreign nations, they too have done things that were not kosher with the Constitution. We all know that, right? I don't like how members of Congress are criticizing Donald Trump for committing to airstrikes in the country Iran without their approval. They claim that Donald Trump was in breach of the Constitution when he did that. But my thing when it comes to people being in breach of the Constitution, let's look at it from the perspective of equal protection of the law, right? The Constitution says many things. The Bill of Rights says things, the Declaration of Independence, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It says what members of Congress, to include other civil servants, should not do in this country under that specific document. Yet those in Congress tend to ignore the Constitution when doing so benefits their agenda. But the moment Donald Trump does it, they have a problem with him not adhering to the bounds of the Constitution for the United States. That is hypocrisy, y'all. Now, mind you, for those of you who are listening, I don't agree with what Donald Trump does oftentimes. But when it comes to members of Congress critiquing him for virtually doing the same thing that they do, I find that to be based upon hypocrisy. And I don't like that. What's going on, Jacob? Aiden, Heaven. What's going on? What's that? Pooch. Which article are they violating? Let's look at the Second Amendment to the Bill of Rights, for instance, Pooch. The Second Amendment to the Bill of Rights specifically says that the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. If you look at the definition of infringed, it specifically says shall not be ignored, shall not be violated. So when members of Congress create um, legislation restricting our access to firearms through gun control, they are in essence in breach of the Second Amendment to the Bill of Rights, which is associated with the supreme law of the land under Article 6 governing the Constitution for the United States of America, amongst other things. But I mentioned the Second Amendment because that is a growing issue that has derived on many fronts here in the United States as of late. So a lot of civil servants violate the Constitution, y'all. But I just don't like the hypocrisy in it. Okay, yeah, the Heller decision, I agree with that, but at the same time, there was some contradictions in it that didn't correlate with prior judicial precedent in which the Supreme Court judges were bound to adhere to. So, and another thing, now that I'm on this topic, y'all, I want every one of y'all to understand something when it comes to judicial decisions. You all have to realize that we, the people, have authority over those in civil service. The judges in the Supreme Court are not the ones in authority. We, through the act of invoking our right to judicial review, we bring these cases before the judges and we compel them through the arguments we make to rule in our favor. So in essence, we are the ones in authority. It is our ruling in the Heller decision. We just compelled the judges of the Supreme Court to acknowledge the freedom that we have under the Second Amendment to keep and bear arms. So it is not them, y'all. It is not those in civil service who have authority. It is the people who put them there, people like you and I. So that is one thing that I believe everybody should become aware of and actually lean on that particular understanding as we go through life in the political realm. So, yeah. But I also, one of my favorite decisions out of the Supreme Court is the case of United States versus Cruikshank. Many of you may not be familiar with that decision, but it was a decision that was issued in the year of 1886, still what they consider to be good law today, because that case has never been overruled. And in that case, the judges were very specific in what they meant when they were speaking about the Second Amendment governing the Bill of Rights. Let me see if I can't give y'all a little taste of what the judges were saying by quoting what the judges said in that case verbatim. And here it is. Okay, for those of you who don't know, United States versus Cruikshank, citation number 92 US 542, 23 LED 588. Again, that case, and I'm quoting now, was issued in the year of 1876. So forgive me for that misquote earlier, but it was a case that was issued in the year of 1876 by Chief Justice Morrison Remick Waite. And on page 553 to that specific judicial precedent, Justice Waite, in writing for the majority, stated, and I quote, "The Second Amendment declares that it shall not be infringed, but this, as has been seen, means no more than that it shall not be infringed by Congress. This is not a right granted by the Constitution. Neither is it in any manner dependent upon that instrument for its existence. This is one of the amendments that has no other effect than to restrict the powers of the national government." End quote. That is the decision that Chief Justice Waite rendered in the case of United States versus Cruikshank. When you look at that specific paragraph, it specifically entails that members of Congress has no authority under the Constitution to enact firearm legislation. Neither does the president for the United States, to include the judges of the Supreme Court and the inferior courts, have any authority to make rulings that restrict one's access to keep and bear arms under the Second Amendment. However, they have been disregarding that specific judicial precedent for many years now, and I'm under the impression that they don't even know what the freaking opinion was in that case. They don't honor it, y'all. Many times when the law doesn't benefit someone's political, personal, financial, spiritual, or business interests or agendas, they tend to disregard the law and do as they please. And once that occurs, specifically with those in civil service, they expect us civilians just to listen without doing anything about it, just to adhere to whatever it is they say. And sadly, many civilians believe in that nonsense. Many civilians believe in it. But in speaking about the Heller decision, Pooch, this is what I disagree with when it comes to the Heller decision. And this decision was an opinion issued by Associate Justice Scalia. Now, District of Columbia versus Heller, for those of you who do not know, the citation number for that specific case is 554 U.S. 570, 171 LED 2D, 637, 128 SCT, 2783. That case was issued by the Supreme Court judges in the year of 2008. On pages 626 and 27 to that specific judicial precedent, Judge Scalia stated, and I quote, "Although we do not undertake an exhaustive historical analysis today of the full scope of the Second Amendment, nothing in our opinion should not be taken to cast doubt on long-standing prohibitions on the possession of firearms by felons and the mentally ill, or laws forbidding the carrying of firearms in sensitive places such as schools and government buildings, or laws imposing conditions and qualifications on the commercial sale of arms," end quote. I do not agree with that portion of the Heller decision, primarily because that specific portion of the Heller decision is in conflict with the opinion rendered in the Cruikshank decision, in which I just read in relevant part to you all. That's what I'm talking about. Law is law. Everyone in America is bound to adhere to the law. It doesn't matter what position in politics one has. It doesn't matter if you are a Supreme Court judge for the United States or a civilian working as a janitor in some elementary school. Every one of us is bound by the law. There's nothing left to say about that. It is what it is. In addition to that, the Heller decision, it conflicts with one of the cases that I like quoting from, and that case is the case of Severo versus Locklear, a citation number 328 F3D 567. This case was issued by the judges of the United States Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit in the year of 2003. You all may be wondering, why am I quoting or citing a decision of the lower court when challenging the decision of the Supreme Court? It's simple. Primarily because the judges in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals were quoting what William Rawls said in his book titled A View of the Constitution of the United States of America, that was written in the year of 1829. Now, William Rawls was one of the individuals who had a profound say and how the Constitution for America came about. So what he says in his book is directly related to what was actually going on at the time that the Founding Fathers had created the Second Amendment to the Bill of Rights to include other portions of the Constitution. In this particular case, Judge Kleinfeld on page 584 stated, and I quote, "No clause in the Constitution could by any rule of construction be conceived to give Congress a power to disarm the people," end quote. So if there is no clause under the Constitution that would enable members of Congress to create laws that restricts our access to firearms through gun control, which is in essence an act of disarming the people, right? Why the heck would Judge Scalia say what he said in the Heller decision, knowing that he was in breach of the legal authority that was put out in the lower court decision, in which every judge was bound by? It's just something to think about, y'all. We have freedoms that those in civil service were placed at to protect and defend from enemies both foreign and domestic. That is the oath that they have taken prior to accepting those specific positions of public trust to we, the people. But it seems that they have disregarded the oath that they have taken before us under God, because now they see that to do for the people in which we put them in those positions to do does not fully benefit their interests or agendas. And that is a problem that I have. I have a significant problem with those in civil service who have done that, who have manipulated us through deceit into voting for them only to obtain a position to not benefit our interests under the Constitution, but to benefit their interests and agendas. And I'm pretty sure I'm not alone in this. How you doing? What's that? Amateur? Amateurette? What's going on, Poland? So what y'all do in Poland for fun? Like I said, this is general conversation. One of the viewers asked me a question based upon something I said, so I was just basically answering that question. But yeah. I wanted to do a general chat live stream here on YouTube today in order to get to know more about the people that's on this particular app. It's my way of getting to know people, because you never know who you might meet on these apps. Every one of us have something to offer. It's just that if we don't know about one another, we'll never know what it is one needs in which we could possibly provide to make one's life a heck of a lot easier than it already is, and vice versa. So that's why I'm saying, and I appreciate the likes for those of you who gave me the likes thus far. Moving to another topic though, y'all, for those of you who are on social media. Are any one of y'all on TikTok or Bigo Live? If so, why is it that those apps allow a lot of what I heard bots to get into one's DMs, making an individual believe that they are actually a real person? And why is it that so many apps like Bigo Live and TikTok, what is it with a lot of these fake profiling scammers is the question that I'm posing to someone on this particular live stream. Why do so many people feel the need to act like someone else in order to get attention? Why do people feel the need to scam people out of personal information to basically steal money when people can just ask people for help and people will help out the kindness of their own hearts. Why do y'all think people do that? And then at the same time, the people that do it, they feel like no one in the world can actually track them down. I personally feel that if people are more honest with people, they can get a lot more out of people compared to being dishonest. And I'm pretty sure many of you agree with that concept, right? How many women are on YouTube as far as women that look at these type of live streams? Do I have any women in the chat? If so, where you from? How was y'all day thus far? Or night, depending on where you are. What's been going on with you? Yeah. So I came back from the IRS building today, y'all. They had the refund that I'm scheduled to receive on hold pending proof of who I was because of a potential identity theft crisis. So I'm gonna have to reset another appointment in order to convey the information that one of the agents told me that he needed in order to get that refund from last year sent to me. So that should be interesting. But these scammers, they are getting or becoming more and more, I guess you can say, realistic. Like one of the women down here in the state of North Carolina, she had posted how she got a letter from what she perceived was someone within the state court system telling her that she had a ticket that she needed to pay and that she can meet up with somebody to pay this ticket to where she won't have to go to court and all this bull crap. So when I started looking at the document, I noticed things immediately that a general civilian may not have caught on to, such as she didn't, because I've studied law for over 20 years. So there were things in that specific document that were not there that should have been there. And that should have been there that was not there. That is what alerted me to the document being a complete and utter scam. But to this woman, it seemed to be legitimate. That is why she sought people's advice on social media to inform her of what we thought about that particular document. So I definitely reached out to her and gave her my spiel on what I thought of it, which perhaps saved her some time and trouble. But I just like people that take advantage of others, prey on people's weaknesses, their ignorance or incompetence in order to manipulate people into getting what it is they want. I don't like that, y'all. And I'm pretty sure many of you are not in agreement with that either. All right, let me go back up here. Oh, yeah. Okay, Heaven. Matter of fact, let me see if I can't respond to some of you. I know y'all might not be in here anymore, but no, I don't want to do that. I know on TikTok, if someone sends or submits a comment, it can be responded to. Same thing on Facebook, amongst other apps. Oh, shit, getting pings. Let me see. See who's sending me some messages. Oh, hold on. See my homegirl up in there. But nothing too serious. Okay, back to what I was doing. Let me see if I can't respond. That way, if I do end the live stream, at least you all can know that I responded. Okay, pin message. Put user in timeout. Nah, I wouldn't want to do none of that. Heaven. Okay, well, it'll let me pick moderators. Yeah, I appreciate all y'all for coming up, though. Maybe y'all relook at this live stream when it ends. Pretty sure they'll post it. So, well, before I leave, though, for those of you who are looking from what we call the hallways of TikTok, be mindful of who you all vote for. Don't allow certain people to further manipulate you all into voting for them when they truly do not have your or my best interests at heart. Vote for people, for those of you who decide to do so, who are actually qualified for a specific position of public trust. Don't vote for people just because you like them, because of one's celebrity status, because you like something that they said at a specific moment in time. We have to realize that many people who are currently running or will run for public office, they tend to tell us things that they feel we want to hear in order to manipulate us into voting for them. And when we vote, we, in essence, hire them for a specific position in which they seek. Never lose sight of that. It's time that we start putting words that we use into the proper perspective. It's long overdue. Once we start putting words into the proper perspective, we will start gradually seeing, in my view, the changes that we want to see reflected in people within this country, especially those whom you all feel have authority over you, such as Donald Trump amongst judges in the Supreme Court, as conveyed by Pooch here in the chat, from what I gather, based upon the question that Pooch asked. It's all about having knowledge of law and politics, everybody. I don't care how old you are. You have to know these things, because if you do not know anything about law and politics, you will never be in a position to pick people out of a crowd to place in a specific position of public trust. You will never be in a position to hold those who violate law accountable. We cannot challenge things if we don't have the appropriate knowledge that is required to challenge. We cannot defeat an enemy if we know not who that enemy is. So when you speak about people, be specific about who it is you're making reference to. Don't say, for instance, the Trump administration, the White House said this, because we know that the White House is a freaking building. We know that that building is an inanimate object that cannot speak. So obviously, when people talk about the White House, they are in essence referring to the president that's sitting in the White House at that particular moment in time. My advice to everybody who sees this live stream, say what you mean and mean what you say. Another thing, when you say the White House, that can be the Speaker of the White House, that can be the Secretary of Defense. You have to be specific in who you're speaking about, especially when you speak about people in a negative light. When one of us finds that somebody in civil service has done something in breach of the Constitution when encroaching upon the freedoms that we have, the freedoms that we put them in those positions to protect and defend, we need to know names. We need to know who specifically did what, when, and where, and how they did it. Only then will we know exactly who we need to attack. Just think about it from this perspective. When somebody is indicted, for those of you who know a little bit about the so-called criminal justice system here in America, the indictment typically says, and every other court document that comes after that indictment has been issued. I'll give you an example. I use myself. United States of America versus Okang Rochelle. You see how when they say the United States of America, that it can go for anybody in this country, whereas they are specific in the person that they are bringing claims against. Now imagine if it was like this: United States of America versus the American people. The individual being charged could argue, and rightfully so, that it's not them. They're not specific in who they're talking about. They said the American people. They can go for anybody in America. That is why those in civil service are specific when it comes to us, and they like keeping it generalized when it comes to them. For those of you who did not know that, for those of you who have never thought about it from that perspective. Be specific, y'all. This is the moral of the point that I'm making to summarize what I was speaking about earlier during the course of this live stream. And for those of you who haven't done so already, if you have any questions related to law and politics, or if you just want to talk about anything in general, feel free to subscribe to the channel. That way I know exactly who you are and we can correspond in the DMs that way, at least from what I gather from the little that I know of YouTube. Yeah, subscribe to the channel. You have questions about law, feel free to ask. And I not only will tell you about the law, I'm going to specifically quote what the law says so you will know that what I'm telling you is the absolute truth and not just based upon speculation that has no basis in what the judges would say in law nor fact. With that being said, again, I appreciate everybody for coming through. For those of you who have submitted comments telling me hello, I extend that gesture to you all as well. But you all have a nice day and stay safe out there, y'all. Later.